Has the reality of the ultimate sacrifice. It's so close to home.
At our house, he used to know.
Sometimes you just gotta use the right thing.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to That Voiceover Podcast, the show for and about the voiceover industry. I'm Stephen Cox. Now, in addition to her work in commercials and promos, my guest, Kate Higgins, has voiced so many video games and anime series you almost can't count them all. She's also done the voices for a number of children's toys, including Bratz dolls, Barbie Mermaid, and Build-A-Bear. And if that's not enough to keep her busy, she's also a jazz pianist and singer who has released a number of albums with Concord Jazz. But we're here to talk about her voiceover work. So, Kate Higgins, welcome to That Voiceover Podcast.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
So talk a little bit about how you got started in voiceover. You were first working as a singer when you were, quote-unquote, discovered. Is that right?
It's very odd because I fell into voiceover. I didn't even know what it was. I moved to Los Angeles at a young, ripe, optimistic age to do music. And I had my aunt's friends' son, blah, 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 worked at a studio where they recorded a lot of voice work. But they were needing a singer to come sing some songs for something for PBS, a little cartoon show where the animals had to sing. And somehow the guy must have told his mother, because then she told my aunt told me. So I called them up and I said, I'm available. And he said, great, could you come by? It was very little pay. And I went, and I did it, and then I was sitting in the little green room, and a woman from Disney Channel was there. And we just started talking. And she said, do you do voiceover? And, I said, what's that? And she said, oh, you've got a great voice for kids stuff. Here's my card. And so Disney called me over the next few years, like 3 or 4 times a year to come do a promo. And then, after about 3 years, I got a phone call, and the head of the promo department said, do you want to be the voice of the channel? And I said, sure. I still didn't really know that was a big deal, and, as far as jobs go for voiceover people. I said, sure. And before the contract was instated, I got paid per spot, per tag, blah, blah, blah. So the first time I got a paycheck, I said, I think you made a mistake. I went to his office. I said, I think you made a mistake. And he said, honey, you need to get an agent. So I got an agent, and then it just all kind of happened.
You fell into it in almost sort of a fantasy-like scenario.
Yes.
Did you do any training to learn how to do promos, or did that just sort of come naturally for you?
It came very naturally. Now, I will say being a musician, a singer, and a pianist, somebody who has a sense of timing, enabled me to be able to jump into it and pick it up.
Right, and there's sort of a musical quality to doing promos anyway.
Yes.
A fellow voice actor that we both know, Craig Da Silva, is also a musician, and he has talked about that too, most notably in his work as the voice of The Sopranos, said it's very much like music. So it seems like I guess that was a natural transition for you.
It's very much like music. And so, and then when they say, can you shave off half a second, it's easy to just kind of have a feel for what half a second would feel like. And also just the inflection of the lines. Yes. It is musical.
Okay, now talk a little bit about how you got into anime, because that's been such a big portion of your career. How did that all come about? That
kind of came about the same way. I mean, I was already in voiceover at this point, but just working at Disney, when that job ended, some of the writers and producers and directors from there that were freelance went on to do some other things, and of course it's all about networking and relationships, and so I got a call from a girl, Olivia Venegas, who was directing anime, and she said, you'd be really good for this. I said, I've never done it before, as far as like the matching the lip flaps, and I didn't think I'd know how to do it, and she said, oh no, you'll learn. And so she kind of gave me my start in it, and it's just such a small little world that once you're in, and if you're good and you can do it, then you just meet everybody, and it's just it's a little niche.
Now, you sort of touched on I think you said, was it lip flaps? Is that what you said?
Yeah, like, the Godzilla movies, you're overdubbing. So first it was in Japanese.
Right.
And they give you a line, and you have to match it exactly, and this is where being a musician comes in handy too. You've got to get the timing right, because you're trying to put English words into the lip movements of the Japanese language, but it all has to start and end at the same time. And then there's also internal sync. You kind of want it to be match as much as possible throughout the line.
Now, are you expected to sound like the original Japanese actress as well in terms of your voice quality?
In general, yes. The client, who's usually Japanese, who owns the product, when they audition, they do kind of want it to have a similar tonal quality to the original, yes.
Anime people are really pretty fanatical about anime and manga, and I'll actually post a couple of interviews that you've done on YouTube on the site so people can kind of take a look at some of the questions that you get asked. But what's that been like personally, sort of dealing with that? Do you feel a certain amount of pressure to sort of live up to these people's expectations?
Oh, yeah. Because they're so into it that when I've gone to conventions, and done the whole autograph thing and been on the panels, they ask you questions, about episode number 120 when I threw my shuriken at Sasuke, and, what did I mean when I said XYZ? And I'm thinking to myself, what did I don't even remember it. So, and I would feel kind of bad because I feel like it's such a huge part of their life, and while I love the work, it's only part of what I do, that I felt I was disappointing them a little, that I wasn't more involved in it kind of in my off time, Sort of gives you a glimpse as to what it must be like to have been a character on Star Trek and those sort of fanatical questions that they all get. Yeah. All right, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the work that you've done doing voices for toys. How is that different, say, from doing a video game? What are the particulars of doing a voice for a toy? Well, I do. I've done quite a few different brands of toys, but I've for 5 or 6 years been doing Fisher-Price toys. The first thing that comes to mind is it's so much easier on your voice because you're not yelling and screaming. But really, it's more instructional as opposed to acting. I mean, you still can't sound terribly fake, or you still have to sound sincere. Mostly I'm doing a young mom's voice. You found 3 pigs. Touch the apple. You can't sound totally insincere, but it is more about executing the consonants and getting the words perfectly out. They have a tiny little microchip in the toy, so a lot of the consonants and sounds are lost in translation when they, dump it down onto this little microchip. So you have to really speak very clearly and more slower than normal, and you might say 2 pigs 20 times because they're trying to get it exactly the way they want it. And the music matters in that too, because you could say 2 pigs, 2 pigs, 2 pigs, 2 pigs. So there have been sessions where I literally have just had to stop and go, you guys, I got to walk away, because you really start to feel like you're just like turning into this like weird computer alien person. It's weird. How long do these sessions usually last? It depends on the length of the copy for the toy, meaning the amount of script. Some toys that I've done have 2 little songs and 3 sentences, spoken sentences, and that's it. It's for like a small infant, Some of the toys are much more educational and instructional, and there's a lot of copy. So the biggest toy I did probably took 3 sessions, and each session is, Fisher-Price is really nice about that because they don't want to wear out your voice. Each session was 3 hours long. So it took 9 hours to do that toy.
I want to talk about the audition process. When you are preparing a brand new character and you're getting ready to audition that character, talk a little bit about how you sort of put that together in your mind. How do you create a brand new character?
I look at the picture. The picture says a lot. You know, does the person have, like, an overbite? Or is the person wearing braces? You know, or is the person really an animal? You know, if it's a talking dog, sometimes I start with, like, the sound that dogs make, you know, woof, woof, and then kind of talk from there to get, you know, or a pig who's, then I kind of go with the piggy sound or something. So I usually start with the way it looks, then the sound comes from, like, an animal, and you really have to, like, get in the stance, take on the whole physicality of the way the character looks in the picture. That's how I start. That's what I learned in the first animation, like when I was just getting into it, and I took from Sue Blue, and we really learned to start from organically the sounds that these characters would make. That is, if they're like animal. In animation, they're so much of the time they're animals, you know, they're talking. If it's little girls or little boys, the picture just tells 1,000 words about their personality.
Talk about the difference between doing voices for little boys and little girls. What are the certain things that you do to affect a little boy's voice?
Well, really, when the kids are really little, you know, they really sound the same when they're like 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. Sometimes you really can't tell the difference at all, but with the boys, you just put a little more of the gravel in their voice, you know, to make them sound not so clean like a little girl. It's just a little bit cleaner. There are people that like only do boys. They have a natural kind of gravel to their voice. I have to really kind of work to get mine, and if I scream a lot first, it helps. So that's kind of how to do the little boy, and you just have to kind of make the voice smaller. Like, it doesn't resonate big like an adult's, you know, like ours is just bigger and kind of takes up more space. But like kids, even though they're still loud, you just kind of pinch it off a little because their voice is, the chords are just not big yet, you know.
Well, speaking of voices, because I know you personally, I know that in your natural speaking voice you have a very charming Southern accent.
Thank you.
But you're able to turn that on and off at will. Is that pretty easy for you to do?
That's very easy for me to do. Every once in a while, and it really is just every once in a while, the director will be like, you know, can you do that line over again? I heard a little bit of your twang. It comes out mostly if the line has a certain attitude where my southernness would come out, you know? So it's kind of an attitudinal thing.
Well, Kate Higgins, thank you so much for sharing all of your insight over your years in this wonderful industry we call voiceover.
Well, thank you so much, and you know, you got a nice voice too.
You think? Should I think about a career in voiceover?
You might want to.
That Voiceover Podcast is a co-production of Half Full and Get Creative Inc. Thanks for listening. I'm Stephen Cox.